Today on the CIO Lifeline, we have Jason Gumpert from Microsoft Dynamics World back with us today. We're going to talk about AI. It's a topic that we keep beating up, but for good reason. The way we see these agents cropping up and being put to use in business is nothing short of mind-blowing. We're going to try and stay ahead of it. That's a tough challenge, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with Jason. Jason, good morning. Thanks for coming back on the show.
Hey, Tony, it's a pleasure to be here again.
Jason, good to have you. Good to see you.
Hey, Tom. Always fun to talk to both of you.
So, Jason, we've run into each other a couple of times over recent spring conferences, and I think we're hearing a wide variety of opinions regarding AI and, what does it mean for end users? What does it mean for the Microsoft partner channel? What are you hearing?
Yeah, I mean, calling it a wide-ranging conversation is probably the best way to describe it, because we're at a point right now where there's just wildly different takes out there in the world. So from Microsoft, the smart leaders and aspiring leaders, obviously they toe the line set and pick up the tone set from the top. And I'll try to sound like that. I mean, it's probably no surprise. That's sort of the way Microsoft or other big companies tend to work. And so you hear very, very consistent, super optimistic, super forward-looking, vision for the future of what agents mean and how they're sort of already transforming Microsoft's vision of what they deliver from a business applications perspective to the marketplace, even if, the reality of what their customers are doing is obviously quite a bit behind that. But the consistency is impressive, I would say. And so is the, so is the sort of outlook. And then, from there, if I just think about sort of what I'm hearing out in the world, then you have, I would say, the veterans of the space who aren't maybe Microsoft loyalists, who are, more focused on the real world. And then you get more of a mix of views. So some super optimistic people out there who say AI is even further along than people think. It's an even bigger deal than people think. And then you have, all the way through to people who are saying it might have a big impact in the future. We just have to wait and see. And then you have on the far end, the real skeptics who are saying, like, you have not proved this to me. You have not shown me the complete picture of what, an AI-driven world really is going to look like, how it's going to actually make sense for the kind of businesses that Microsoft is supposed to be serving.
So the skeptic end of the spectrum, you have your go-getters at all costs, you're cautiously optimistic, and then it whittles down to the skeptics. Has that side shrunk in population, or do the skeptics remain strong?
Yeah, I would say, the end of the spectrum, the most critical, I would say, is not a huge group that are super vocal about it. What I think I'm hearing, from a lot of people, whether it be sort of professionals, like technology professionals, or sort of end users, is that, they don't want to, you don't want to be so negative on something like that you're going to miss real opportunities. And that's maybe something we can talk about, because I would definitely call myself, as a bit of a skeptic, as someone who, not that I don't believe things, but that I want to see proof, and that I want to see, both product proof and then customer proof, that both of those things work out. What I would like to see more of is the customer proof that in the Microsoft perspective, that partners are putting things in place, solutions in place, that they're deploying to customer and that they're helping customers deploy them, and that customers are getting real value out of them. And so I think there are some really interesting spots where that's already happening. And I know from a development perspective, there's certainly scenarios where that's already happening. But what I would like to see is sort of a more consistent sort of stream of those types of stories and maybe a little bit beyond anecdotes. And I think as you see partners, in the Microsoft context, get more confidence in those stories, then it will become obvious, right? Because when they have confidence, they're happy to go to market and brag about all the successes they're having.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting. And I suppose I'm probably more bullish, right? I would be near not, and frankly, my approach, Jason, and I think I was always a frustration to Microsoft when we were partners, right? We had a business to run. Right? The Microsoft party line was just fine, and we were a loyal Microsoft partner, but our business didn't always line up with the Microsoft message, right? Our customer, relied on us to be the loyal filter and to call it however we saw it, regardless of what Microsoft was saying. And, as we guide our customers, so two things I think we found in our company. One, it's a lot like Power BI. Power BI was a slow uptake, I think, right? It was available in rough forms. It wasn't great, but it was available for a long time before it started to show up everywhere. And it's because people could easily say, I want dashboards. Great, Jason, what would you like on your dashboard? Well, dashboardy things. I was at a conference. There was pictures. It was nice. It was great. My business run better. But once you give them a dashboard, then they go, oh, this is great. Move this over here. It's missing that. Right? Once you give them a piece, they can help you fill in the rest. And so when we start executive teams, we call it an AI adoption workshop, right? But we work with the executive team, right? No, we want leadership just to have a vision, right? What might a real AI application look like in our business? And frankly, maybe not even related to the ERP. Not that they can't apply, but those are more complicated agents to start with, right? We're like, look, you're doing something now that's a time suck. Let's look for that. And then we built them. And then we set up, we call it a continuous improvement group. But, then we go down to the departments after the end of the workshop. And so now it depends on how complicated our next examples are. But we go to the departments and we have each of them take on an agent in their department, and they come back for show and tells. Man, when we join those calls each month and listen to the show and tell results and the cool stuff they're saving hours and hours, right? Now, is it replacing the entire accounting staff? No. Now, here's the bull. Not yet.
San Bernardino. Of course you realize this means war.
And that opens up the door to the change management, user perception piece of it. Yeah, and to Tom's point, we start with the executive team where there's a pilot project, very low risk. And I would say fast turnaround, because it comes with an air of caution or thought that this is going to take us, an exorbitant amount of time and dollars and pulling resources internally from their day jobs. It's anything but that. But that aside, there is that fear that, okay, AI sounds great until I'm on the unemployment line as a result of these efforts, But you got to break through that. It's all in the education, and especially for companies that are growing, you can repurpose that reclaimed mundane time and put it to better use.
Well, Tony,
that is an outcome also.
I didn't check this stat, but the AI-driven leader, he refers to it all the time. 40% of the jobs that exist today didn't exist 60 years ago. I don't know what it's going to look like. Is it universal basic income and we're all lounging, you and Jason and I are hanging out on a golf course someplace? I don't know. But I do know. Yeah, right. But I do know that what I have seen and what I have personally experienced internally, because we challenge each other too, Jason. I don't know what you guys are doing. But I would encourage you, like you and Adam, like challenge each other, invite AI to every conversation. I think you'll find real evidence.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would love to hear more, more kind of specific examples from you of where you've been impressed by what you've seen clients do. I mean, the best examples I've seen that give me at least some sense of where things might be headed, going back to partners, is some of the examples that Microsoft rolled out, and it was real, and it seemed like something that saved hours, like you said. It was the one that I keep thinking back to, and it wasn't the only one, but the one I can kind of remember off the top of my head was, taking a legal document that would typically require a lawyer or maybe some kind of regulator to comb through and spend a couple hours sort of picking out very important details for a regulatory process, and that you could send that PDF document into some kind of a model. It could then extract the relevant details that would have taken hours, right, for a human to do in a matter of minutes.
That's a good use case. Now the executive board, I'll say hesitation or skepticism is, well, that's not generating revenue. No, but it's saving time that comes off the bottom line. But it's an easy pilot project. It's one of the many options that we like to put forth. Another one is internal policy documentation, SOPs. Being able to disseminate and go find the answer is usually quite painful. So you just let your company's agent ingest it, and then you have a natural conversation with that agent and extract that, those details. But you would also ask, what are we seeing? So back to now some of these more revenue generating ideas and concepts is creating a 24/7 sales agent that people online, your customers out there, can interact with, and not in this old school robotic hello, and prompt poor experience. This is, I'd like to place an order, here are the items for the order. So you're doing this conversationally. It's like, oh, I see, in the suggestive selling and upselling that comes with that conversation. And then it gets it into the ERP system. Does it have to be a Microsoft ERP system? No. Microsoft's all in on the tech. And for those that are using Microsoft tools, I do believe you have a leg up. But that's the beauty of this space. It doesn't matter what system you're using and tools outside of ERP, there is a place for AI, because if you're not looking at it, I guarantee you your competition is.
Well, and, Jason, I would just say something you could play with yourself and any of our listeners. So, first, speak with your agent. Okay. That was a big shift for me. I saw Satya do it at Ignite. I thought it was cool. I couldn't make it work the first couple times. I went back to typing. But then our partner, Craig, was doing a demo. We do learnings in our partner meetings every week. And Craig was doing a demo and he was talking with it. Now, it's only 2 months later, but it's night and day better, right? It understood him. It sounded like conversation. It was a conversation. Right.
There's ahs and ums.
And so
the natural pauses, honest to God, like,
right.
If we knew what he was doing out of the gate, but if we didn't know what he was doing, I would have been like, well, who's this guy?
Right.
Who's this gal? I mean, it is a real thing.
And so walk it through. Say, hey, you and Adam are planning something, your next survey. Help us as our thought coach consider the following things. This is our market. This is blah, 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 blah. Right. I just did this with a group of attorneys. It all happened by accident. We serve on a board together and we start talking. They asked me about AI. They're like, yeah, our CIO, blah, blah. And, I just can't. I said, you know what? Here's the problem, guy. And if you're over 60, congratulations, because you're going to slide right into retirement. This is probably, you can avoid this whole deal. But if you're under 60, then you better get with the program, because legal documents, look, the law is fairly static, right? Tax documents. The question I ask people to consider, and it takes them a minute, but these attorneys fancied that I thought the lights went on quick. Imagine if everything that could be known is known, right? What makes you a great attorney? In my view, once they accept avatars in court, it's over. But up to now, if you're an accomplished litigator and a generalist, I think you survive, because asking good questions, having broad interwoven experience helps you. I think the idea of deep subject matter expertise is an obsolete concept.
Well, I think from what I know of the legal profession and how law firms operate, I'm by no means an expert in it, but from sort of what I've gathered over the years, not the most technology first industry, but also one that really distills down what do I really need to spend money on, I guess, from an IT perspective. They're very, hesitant, it seems like, in many cases, especially in the smaller and mid-sized firms. What do I really need to invest in versus what can we make part of our partner bonus at the end of the year? And they will run that all the way to the ground. And historically, that's sort of the reputation I've heard in many cases. So when that profession really embraces cases, it's AI scenarios, I should say. That is, to me, is actually a really great sign of finding value in it.
Imagine this. This just hit me right now. So I'm gonna build an agent. I'm gonna load Black's Law Library, and I'm gonna load everything for the state that I'm in, and blah blah blah. Every state, everything that can be loaded, all the legal findings, every case law, all of it. Now, I'm just gonna let you dial in. Jason, you got a question? Dial in. You can talk to my agent anytime you want. $25 a month. And it doesn't cost me anything. You can have you can talk to 1,000. I can have 1,000 phone calls right now.
I want to acknowledge hallucinations. And I mean, you still need, like, if I'm I don't know what position to call out, but call it a clerk of some kind. Someone's doing the research, right? So if your law firm has 12 of these individuals that are, cramming books and doing research, even some of the partners, AI can reduce the vast majority of that. All true. But you still need a set of eyes. You still need to validate this information. I mean, we can cite multiple court cases where someone brought a fake case in based off a hallucination and AI. Now, all that gets better. I'm with you. And the prompts are super important. But we got to have some sanity check after the fact, right?
Paralegals are toast.
Well, one thing this also makes me think of is when you really try to play out what the future is going to look like in scenarios like that. I was just rewatching Microsoft's very short demo of agent feeds, which is something they talked about from Build. It's a Power Platform tool that's in preview. This sort of running list, almost like LinkedIn style, of what all your agents are doing at any point in time. Sort of in real time, this agent finished this task, this agent just did this, and you're sort of seeing them run out. And in Microsoft's vision of it, they have this sort of full page of just agents and new items coming into the feed at the top over and over. And if an agent gets blocked for some reason and needs a human to step in, it shows it. And that's kind of the point of it. It's like, it kind of gives you a feeling that the people at the company can then step in and help an agent when they need to. But I sort of was watching it, and my first thought was like, is this sort of the future of work, that you're sort of sitting and watching these agents report back to you of every step they take, and then making you the person responsible for fixing their problems and taking the fall if something goes awry, as they're like throwing all these tasks at you?
This is almost now where you go to bed, you wake up, and your agent briefs you on the 5 meetings it had while you were sleeping, or while you were away from your desk, or while you were on vacation. Here are the cliff notes. Here are the action items. I already got 2 things scheduled for you next week on follow-ups. So yeah, there is exactly that. But I just want to go back a little bit more on let's let's be careful because we're not at AGI yet. If it's to me, these should have master classes on prompting, because I can ask ChatGPT who the leading soccer scorer is, and I get a guy, and then I can say, well, what about so and so, the female who is the true record holder? Like, well, yeah, if you're talking about women's sports, she is by far the leading scorer of all. But my original prompt was, who's the leading scorer in soccer? So there is the inherent biases, because AI is only going to give back to us what has been fed. So let's, I'm with you. I'm becoming bullish, but if to be fully, 100% whatever it tells me, I'm good. Let's we got to apply some caution here.
My running theory now is that most new innovation from Microsoft, or most new feature sets, are going to be in the form of agents that they pre-build, and that you're going to see very little of like traditional enhancements to the D365 products, for example. Have you? But for myself, I haven't heard a lot of stories yet of customers actually using them and getting much value out of them. Have you seen that?
Yeah, here's the challenge, right? They don't. It's typical Microsoft stuff. Does it work? Yeah, it works in a really narrow lane. If you don't take it much off task, it does exactly what it says it does. The problem is, in most businesses, things don't come in quite that cleanly.
But this is where I am bullish, because now it's not research, if you will. It's just using your data. And that's where I think you can get tremendous value now, immediately, no questions asked. Tom's point on the Microsoft narrow window, complicated prompts, all true. But for you to embrace AI and start getting the benefit of it today, it doesn't have to be inside a BC using Copilot. I mean, there are models and ways to ingest your company's information and work alongside Copilot, to work alongside your ERP system to get the real value right now.
There's so much to shake out still here. I mean, the other one thing we haven't talked about at all, I think, is the security aspect and the sort of shadow IT aspect of this. Heard all of them where people unlock very scary capabilities or open the door for fraud, right? So, I mean, that whole world, I think, is almost just burgeoning now, and some of the risk management that's going to go into this as more companies get off the sidelines.
And the skeptics go there. They go right to Skynet. They go right to HAL from the previous movies. Like, they're all Hollywood when they're skeptics. They can come back with all Now there's tools out there that really help harden your network and alert you to activity that's unsanctioned or just simply not what you want. And that's the other education piece. It's agents, the automation, the AI adoption, all exciting, all real. But yes, you do have to protect it. You do want to make sure that anything proprietary doesn't get out into the ether. There is a discipline to it, and that's all part of the rollout. That's all part of the longer term initiative. And my hat's off to Microsoft for helping build an ecosystem that you can have guardrails and you can alert the right people to activity that's just not sanctioned by your company. Because if you limp along and you just feel like, all right, we're going to get to it, but that's a 2026 initiative. Well, then it's 2027 before it's unleashed. Now you're in a year and a half into that 3-year window that we believe is when everything has been unleashed. And now all of a sudden you're playing catch up, and your competition is living the life and having the benefits that you've been too hesitant and too afraid to get started with.
The analogy we use, Jason, a lot is the old tree one, right? Best time to plant a tree was 30 years ago. The best time to start learning about AI for your organization was probably 2.5 years ago, because now you would have your thinking fully developed, because it's coming. It's coming. In my view, this is electricity, and it's coming.
We haven't talked about this, but the point I've brought up, I think, in different places is Microsoft isn't doing this so that you're going to spend less money with them. I mean, that's just not part of this story. So,
and for a company that is embracing of partners, they're creating a technology that's a threat to partners. I mean, let's just be honest. Like the time and material engagements that traditionally have happened with getting to an ERP system, call them $500,000, they're over. I think they're over. And so now these partners have to reinvent themselves. Some are going to close their doors. I mean, honest to God, this is going to be transformative.
This could be another conversation, but as Jason says, we might have a series here after all, Jason. It's, I meet with this group of global partners. They come together, a few of us from each country. And, one of the questions in this survey is, what would be best for partners? And my response was, who cares? No one cares. Microsoft is building for the market, not the partners.
That's our advice to partners. Sell.
Well, no, not really. That's not Microsoft's advice. But
I know.
Who are the customer? The end user is the only one that matters. If it doesn't exist in the mind,
partners will end. I mean, partners ultimately, that's business. It will adapt. I mean, it's not great for everybody, but it will. Partners, like you said, partners are business people, and they will adapt their business. And I mean, obviously, I don't think anybody wants to see disruption that really hurts people directly. But from the partner perspective, I kind of agree with you on that. But yeah, it's a big puzzle I think it'll be a big puzzle for the end user side, partner client, for clients, right? Like what are they going to be? How do they budget for this? What does it mean organizationally for their team? How do they work with a partner? Like how do they engage with them? And
we can't dance around the fact that Copilot, GitHub, I mean, it's writing code. Now, you still have to understand the code. You got to be mindful of spaghetti. Someone has to ultimately support the code. That could even be challenged. But if customers are able to engage and have what traditionally the partner would do be fully internalized because of these automation and AI, that's a disruption. So yes, the reinvention is a thing. They have to carefully consider it. The other debate I like to get into with Tom is, what does this mean for society as a whole? Because AI is in every sector, every business, every company, every corner. It's about automation, eliminating the mundane. I mean, this will have an impact, and we just got to be ready for that and figure out how what we're going to do with it.
And I don't think not too many people lose sight of the fact that there's ultimately real people and lives and why we're all doing this, right? Is because we're people doing, trying to live our lives too. But there's plenty to consider at every level for that stuff.
Well, we think that it really starts with a roadmap, right? Part of our early engagements with our clients is a technology assessment. Like, let's just set a baseline. Where are we? And now let's talk about where we're trying to set all the technology aside, all of it. Where are we trying to go as a business? What need are we serving in the market? And now let's backfill with what technology is going to support us in achieving that goal.
Yeah. And, I don't want to, I just think, that customers are making those decisions at the same time that there's this weird dance playing out at the investor level where, these ridiculously funded, AI companies, OpenAI, for example, that Microsoft's so heavily involved with and others are just, they're playing their own game that has nothing to do with any of that. And so you have this sort of game being played at the investor and VC sort of and private equity level, more VC, I guess, right? But you have this game being played there for sort of like AI supremacy, and then you're trying to also make sense of it from a very sort of traditional business planning perspective and all the principles that you mentioned there. It's a fascinating time for those reasons.
Well, and Jason, you mentioned something that you're talking about funding for these AI companies. And my theory on that, if you think about the money that got thrown at all the telecom companies in Y2K, and they were laying all that fiber, right? Now, a lot of them went broke, right? A lot of people lost money. but we ride that fiber today, right? I think a lot of these AI companies, they're going to invent some cool stuff. People are throwing a lot of money at smart people. A lot of them are going to go out of business, but somebody else is going to ride the investments that they're making in whatever that future looks like. Because I choose to be positive, right? Look, I've read all the stuff. For 10,000 years or so, as human beings, we've managed to sort of figure it out and keep going. So I'm going to figure that for at least another couple of generations, we're going to figure it out and keep going. So, that's
well, and Microsoft's a safe bet, Tom. I love when you say it. It's like I think there's no certainties in life. Pretty sure Microsoft's not going out of business. It's just a safe bet. And you can pick other behemoths in this space too, but Microsoft's a safe bet. Wouldn't you think?
When they bought Nokia, this guy's laughing at me, right? It blows up almost immediately. And so they lose $1 billion. And this guy's questioning me, and I'm like, you're right. I mean, that one hurt. And if we lose $1 billion a year in 100 years, we'll be out of business.
Yeah. I mean, look, what's so interesting though is Microsoft really is. Oh, the thing you really need to watch carefully is how Microsoft is super tied into this. I mean, they are betting their whole company on this. So they, their decisions are not just colored by what's happening with AI in the market, but it's everything that they're doing now. So, and there's a bit of a convergence there where, they're, like you said, Tony, they're just one of the most, fantastic money generating machines the world's ever seen, right?
Well, on that note, I think it's evident that this is a topic that's just never going to lose oxygen. And we don't know what the next 6 months may look like. We like to think we know, but what we can say is it's exciting times indeed. And if you haven't started your AI journey, it's time to start having this discussion. Jason, thanks for your insight. Thanks for sharing with what you're hearing out in the market. Certainly won't be the last time we speak.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Always.
Yep. See you, Jason.
Bye.
AI is only going to give back to us what has been fed. So let's, I'm with you. I'm becoming bullish, but if to be fully, 100%, whatever it tells me, I'm good. Let's we got to apply some caution here.
The next time we have this conversation, I want Mark Hamblin with us because I feel like I need somebody else on my side. Mark's with me.
Well, here's a question, just generally.
I don't know what it's going to look like. Is it universal basic income and we're all lounging, you and Jason and I are hanging out on a golf course someplace? I don't know. But I do know. Yeah, right? But
what do you think about the idea that we're just a bunch of prompts?
If I'm generated from a prompt, how come I don't have 6 fingers?
Some people say we're just AI created via some simple prompts. Thoughts?
If I'm just a prompt, mine clearly said, add anxiety and a caffeine addiction.
Are we all just computer-generated NPCs created by our prompt engineering overlords?
No. If that's the case, they definitely skimped on the tokens for me.
Yeah.
Are we real or AI?
I mean, I really can't tell the difference, can you?
Yeah, if you can't tell either, then we're so cooked.